we're in a difficult time, so I really want to acknowledge that. And I want to get very, very specific today about emotions that we may or may not be feeling. So if this doesn't speak to you in terms of what you are precisely feeling, I think the practice today will still be effective. I've been seeing some posts by colleagues about the time that we are in the calendar, the time of Cheshvan. That is the month that we're in, and it's often called Mar Cheshvan, which means bitter Cheshvan. And the rabbis say, why is it bitter? Because there are no holidays this month. Well, I don't experience Cheshvan as a bitter time. I'm born in the month of Cheshvan. Thank you to so many of you for your birthday wishes last week. I want to point out that this time is a time of change. And we may be thinking about that in terms of the current way that the country is appearing. But I also want to point out that if we look outside, we see that it is a time of change in the seasons. I don't know what it looks like where you are. I'm seeing leaves that have changed color, that have fallen, that are falling, flowers that are dying, plants that are receding back into the earth to regenerate. So this time of Cheshvan is also the time of Scorpio, and Scorpio is about death and rebirth. And for those who know me, I say, and then it's about death and rebirth. So while we may feel ourselves maybe dying a little bit, I'd like to acknowledge that when we go into that place of loss or grief or letting go of something, it is for the opportunity to sit and prepare for what will be reborn. We're also in a water sign. Scorpio is a water sign, and water is emotion. It's big water. It is the ocean. So if you are feeling big emotions right now, that is not inappropriate. And finally, Scorpio is about fear. So fear that you may normally feel seems to be heightened at this season, whether it's connected to the election or not. I want to say just a little bit more about fear, because we may be feeling fear from this moment, which may be calling up fear from other times in our lives. And we may be calling up fear from something that has happened generations and generations ago. Rabbi Mark mentioned Rabbi Dr. Tirza Firestone's upcoming course on healing ancestral trauma. I was at a Yiddish concert yesterday. There were several beautiful melodies sang about the Holocaust. And I found myself in a place of being super activated, which is not that typical for me. So I want to just really hold that if you are feeling a sense of fear or uncertainty right now, it may be this moment compounded by many, many other moments in this lifetime and in many lifetimes prior. So finally, I want to share with you a teaching that my colleague, Rabbi Matthew Soffer at Judea Reform Congregation raised up last week in a beautiful prayer service. We may know the song from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Kol ha'olam kulo, right? Gesher tzar ma'od. And then it goes on, V'ha'ikar lo lifached klal. So the translation is the entire world is a narrow bridge. But the important thing, according to these lyrics, is not to be afraid. And Rabbi Soffer pointed out that that's not what Rabbi Nachman wrote. Rabbi Nachman, a man who suffered through all kinds of personal challenges, wrote these words, Ksheyesh chas v'shalom, when, God forbid, eze dechak ve'et tzara, there's pressure, and we are at a time of worry or concern or overwhelm. Chas v'shalom, once again, God forbid. V'da, he said, and know, sheha'adam tzarich la'avor al gesher tsar me'od, that a person needs to cross on a very narrow bridge. And he says, ma'od, ma'od, very, very narrow bridge. And here's where it shifts. The haklal, the ha'ikar, and the general rule, and the essence, and the root, shelo yitpached klal. Not lifached, which is to fear, but yitpached, shelo yitpached klal, that one should not be. Yitpached is reflexive, it's hitpael, and I think of it as we should not fear ourselves, or that we should not be consumed by fear. And the way Rabbi Soffer presented this was that we should not become petrified by our fear. And so as we go into today's practice, I would like to bring forward the words of another one of my teachers, the esteemed Sylvia Boorstein, who I had the honor to sit with this past August. And she said that a practice that has become very central for her are these words: I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And so what I would like to do in our practice is guide us just a little bit to see where we are, and then to bring in this teaching and to notice how it might support us in this time of vulnerability and in any time of vulnerability. So find your space. Feel your feet on the ground if that's possible for you, because grounding is so helpful to healing our wounds. Find your spine. Lift it up with dignity. Soften your eyes. Close them if that's right for you. Feel your breath, if that is a useful tool for you. If you prefer, you might focus on light, resting right around your third eye, or whatever helps you to focus and ground. Soften around your vocal cords, your throat. Maybe roll your shoulders a little if that feels good. See if there's tension there you can soften. Allow your hands to set in your lap. And I invite us to do an internal check-in. How does your seat feel? Does it feel supportive? Does it feel clenched? If the latter, can you allow light and breath and space, a sense of safety and wholeness, to spread into your hips, down through your legs? How does your spine feel? You might imagine a liquid light pouring down through your spine. Warm liquid, softening any place that feels tense or held or frightened. And allow that same beautiful, warm liquid of light to spread out into your collarbones, your shoulders, down into your arms, out into your hands and fingers. Up into your head. Are you holding in your eyebrows or your scalp? Is your jaw released? Soft. And allow that same light of wisdom to wash down the front of you, through your sternum and heart space. Let it sit there just a bit. Maybe there's congestion here. Maybe holding. Maybe terror. And see the beauty of your shining heart. That continues to guide you in all circumstances. And let that light continue and wash down around your diaphragm, your solar plexus, into your belly. What's here? Uncertainty, breakfast, softening, softening into faith, into trust. And if you need more time to settle in yourself, please take it. And when you're ready, I invite you to repeat these words to yourself. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And if it feels right, you can place a hand on your heart or on your abdomen or anywhere that it would feel nourishing and supportive. As you repeat to yourself, I am loving awareness. We'll take some quiet time with these words. we gently bring our awareness back to the room in which we sit, back to this larger room that we share together. I invite us to hold this blessing of being loving awareness and bringing these words to ourselves when we feel frightened or lost or confused or angry or any other sense of imbalance. Bringing us to that core of goodness within. Which invites us to share that goodness outside of us.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Robin. Let's seal our beautiful practice by offering an opportunity for those who are in mourning and observing your yahrzeit, or for whom it's the custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask you please stay present for just a few moments to create a community of support and compassion for them. Thanks to Rachel Hugot, who's holding our text space today, for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yamad, Yitrach, Yitrom, Hayechon, V'mechon, Hayed, Chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Bizman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Elam Lameh Lamayah, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitar, Yitramam, V'yitnaseh, Yithadar, V'yitalel, V'yitalal, Shemei Dukusha, B'richu, La'elam, Yimkol Birchata V'Shurata, Ushbechata V'Nachamata, Amiran Ba'alma, V'Yimru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu, V'Kol Yisrael, Amen. Yoseh Shalom B'Mamah, U'Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'Kol Yisrael, V'Kol Yoshvei Tevil, Yimru. Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks to Rabbi Robin Damsky, for leading us, as always, beautifully, and to Rachel Hugot for holding our text space, and to each of you for being here. If you're leaving now, we hope you'll join us either tomorrow or one day this week. A beautiful lineup of teachers we've began today. Tomorrow, Rabbi Shefa Gold will lead us in practice. On Wednesday, Rabbi Jenny Solomon. Thursday, Rabbi Dorothy Richmond. And on Friday, we'll sit into Shabbat with Marita Anderson. And, I do note the uptick in the number of people who are joining us each day, which is reflective, I think, of a lot of the stresses that many people are feeling, that Robin addressed today. And we're just glad each of you is here. We're so happy to have this space to gather and support each other. So thank you for being here and helping to create this community of practice. Of course, you're welcome to stay on if you'd like to just continue to sit and engage in your own practice using this container. Welcome to do so. Just turn off the sound on your computer or device, or join us for conversation, as always. And if you have a question you'd like to ask Robin, just put it in the chat. I'm going to put in the chat, since there was a request, teaching from Rabbi Nachman that Robin referenced. We didn't have a source sheet today, just people who might have come in a little bit late. But Robin, you did reference this teaching by Rabbi Nachman, which of course, I don't know, not everyone knows it, but many people know it from the popular song Olam Kulo. Um, and it's always worth repeating that it's not exactly that the song is not actually the teaching. So I just want to invite you, first of all, to go back and review that now that we have the text there as well, which I put
Yeah,
in.
and I have a slightly different text, which I'm just going to paste in here as well.
Okay.
Um,
I think mine is from Safaria.
and I found mine somewhere else.
Okay, it's fine.
Yours may be accurate.
Who knows what he
Close to
said,
fire.
really? Who knows? Who knows what he really said?
Well, we had a conversation just last week. Um, I think well, I don't think. I'm going to say that what I noticed in myself, and if any of you have been following my social media posts, I notice a huge level of fear in myself, and that is not completely unusual for me as a Scorpio. Fear is a place I know well, but the kind of fear that has been activated, and I'm using that word intentionally, since the election is to the point where it could be overwhelming and overcoming, and it could be petrifying. Petrifying in the sense of getting stuck, of being unable to move. And the beauty of this practice for me is the reminder that that is a moment. And I have seen from so many places, from the Jewish community, from the outside of the Jewish community, from the Black community, from the secular community, these beautiful messages of possibility and hope and love. And so I really wanted to bring that in today because people may be feeling fear, or maybe they're not feeling the word fear, but maybe it's despair, maybe it's gloom. And it's possible that fear is connected in some way to those experiences, to those emotions. So that was a piece of why I wanted to bring this today. You know, we say we always teach what we most need to learn. And I hear people all around me talking about fear, and I know that it's a place that I have been struggling with. So that was the motivation there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, both our versions, by the way, say
Very
shalo
similar.
yit pached. So they're for people who may not be able to play with the Hebrew, it's a reflexive form of the verb to fear. So it is to frighten oneself, right?
Yes.
As opposed to fear, which is to say that um, the popular version, which is lifached, the main thing is not to fear at all. But of course, it's impossible not to fear at all. Fear
Right.
is real, and it serves a purpose. It has a sacred purpose. But as you just said beautifully, Robbie, we're really discerning, honoring the fear, and not fanning the flames in some way, right, of the fear.
Yeah, and I would say that I really, for me, the idea of being consumed or consuming oneself with fear. So, like the fear is like we could think about it as fear to the second power,
Hmm.
or that multiplicity to the point where, and we can do this with any emotion, to the
Hmm.
point where we can't see beyond it.
Yeah. And
And
interesting
then
for me because I
everything,
noticed that, like for myself, the practical way that's worked for me this week has been to cut down on my consumption of news, actually. Not to
yeah,
shut myself off from the world, but to realize how much I do that in
yeah.
order to agitate myself. And so that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I have also cut down on my consumption of news because I, my personal experience, and maybe many of you feel this as well, is that news and social media are really fanning that flame. And there's been an enormous amount of othering. And I think that bringing us back to this sense of loving awareness is a reminder that there isn't other. We could other ourselves, but if we remember that we are coming from a place of heart and soul and light and love, it steps completely over, or maybe just even dissolves those boundaries of separation. And I think the power of this time is for us to come out of that separation and into that sense of wholeness and oneness.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the other part of the meditation in your teaching today about which you drew from our teacher Sylvia Boorstein,
Yeah.
um, of because there are a couple of questions referencing that. Like Carol wrote, after a while, I played with the words instead of "I am loving awareness," she shifted it to "I am loving awareness."
I
And
like that.
there's another comment about uh, what shifts when I say I am loving awareness rather than um, I am in or seek awareness is, and then there's a question, is awareness always loving? It's a really good question. So, am I aware? Am I awareness? Is awareness essentially loving? If so, how do I know that? Like, let's unpack that a little bit, right? Um, when you say the words, I am loving awareness, how do you understand that? Like, what does that do for you?
What happens for me as soon as I speak those words is I go out of my mind. And I don't mean I go out of my mind,
In a good
but I'm
way.
always out of my mind. I mean, I go out of where my mind wants to be, out of my reactivity, out of my thought process. And
Right.
I'm immediately brought to this sense of wholeness. And it's almost like, oh yeah. Now, I do think there's a distinction between awareness and loving awareness.
Yeah, can we before we even go there, let's stop for a second there. Um, because I think, people, as with everything that is offered here, they're all suggestions and people can check them out on their own experience. So thank you for sharing your experience of that,
Yeah.
which accords with my experience of that. When I say, I'm going to take the loving out for a second, say like I am awareness. Um, I think what we're talking about is a recognition that there is, that it's not just that I am aware, but that awareness exists or consciousness exists. And I am tapping into something beyond myself. So literally, I go not just out of my mind, but I go out of myself and I'm part of something larger, right?
Yes.
Okay. So test that on your own experiences. Can you relate to that? But then the question about the loving part. Okay. Now, what about the loving part?
So as a dancer and a body worker, awareness has been a part of my vocabulary for a really, really long time. Bring your awareness to your right knee. Bring your awareness to your center. And that may not necessarily be loving awareness. It's attention. And attention can be kind. Attention can also be, it can be, if we're in the quantum field, it can be emotionless, right? And I think that Sylvia's invitation to say, I am loving awareness is to intentionally connect with that place inside of us that is whole, that is completely interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
completely interdependent, and in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's why it's so calming for me. And for for those for whom this may be new, it may feel like an instant aha. It may feel like a foreign thing or strange. I invite you to spend some time with it in your meditations because it may evolve for you. If it's new for you, that it may become a healing place. Hopefully that it would become a healing place if it isn't already.
Yeah. I was thinking that there's, where it all depends on where you put the inflection, right? You could say, I am loving awareness,
Yeah, and that's great.
or I am
I am
loving
so loving.
awareness,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
But it kind
Ah,
of what you just said is a little bit of what I hear in that is a sense that when we use the word love or loving, it really uh, almost translates as connection, right?
yes.
The awareness is of profound interconnectedness.
And it's
And
also, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. No, Go.
And it's also, it takes me deeper than where my conscious self would be with the things that I have to do in my day or with the distractions. And those are things that we deal with every day, but in a heightened state of emotion, whatever that emotion might be. And I see Steve Siegel, that you were at the retreat with me. That's awesome. And Beverly Zeldin Palmer, it connects us to our essence. Yes, I think yes, that it gets beyond where I get stuck. Maybe that's the, the simplest way to bring it forward.
Mm. Great stuff in the chat, by the way. If you can scroll
Yeah. Oh,
through, really very beautiful, a lot of beautiful observations. In the couple of minutes we have left, Robin, actually, I wanted to, since you focus a lot on earth-based practice, and I don't know if you saw, I posted something last week that the day after the election, just so happened that a garden was put in outside our building, including a rose bush. And I want to give a shout out to a book I read this summer by Rebecca Solnit called Orwell's Roses, which kind of weaves together the life and teachings of George Orwell and his gardening, and particularly roses. So I wanted to see if you can, and since you are a gardener and that's very central to your teaching,
yeah.
how would you weave that in to what you're saying today
So
in
first
terms
of all,
of
I
your,
saw your post and I was so moved by it. I responded to it. I've literally got a cart full
right?
of roses from Heirloom Roses that they said I should wait until the spring to purchase.
Yeah,
As
that
I
made me worried about my roses. You should have put
No,
them in the
they're gonna,
spring.
if
They'll be
whoever puts
okay.
them there,
All right.
I please God, they'll be just fine.
Okay.
Um, as I began this teaching with our connection to the cycle of the seasons that we're in right now, and this recognition that the winters down here in North Carolina are mild. It doesn't mean it doesn't snow, but they're milder than New York, where I've lived, and Chicago, where I've lived. Um, and we sometimes go into that shift of season as feeling a little bit of a loss, a feeling some people love winter, but there is that the beauty of the green and all of the flowers and the chirping of the birds, it shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we are acknowledging the shift of season, and the reason I asked heirloom roses is because I have been planting things this fall. I've been planting all kinds of things because many plants, trees and shrubs and perennials are best to be planted right now.
Mm,
Because in the
right.
winter, they don't
Right.
have to focus on being pretty and green and floral and fruiting. They can focus on building roots.
Mm,
So as we're in this time of vulnerability and change, internally, externally, to acknowledge that as we say, I am loving awareness, we are building roots that can spread, through the synapses in our brain. Like we can think about the synapses as roots, our arteries and our veins and our lymphatic system, all these wonderful networks throughout our bodies that we are literally like investing in them and helping them to grow with loving awareness.
I'm really glad I asked you that question. That was fantastic, fantastically beautiful and inspiring answer. Thank you for that,
Oh,
Robin.
welcome. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. We hope you'll join us tomorrow to learn and practice with Rabbi Shefa Gold. And thanks as always to you, Robin, and to Rachel for holding our space, each of you for being here. Lots of blessings. Be safe and well for the rest of the day and until the next time we see you. And thanks again for being here, everyone. Take good
Thanks,
care.
everybody. Blessings.